Hello, and welcome to T2RL Talks Conference Special Edition. And today we are talking to one of our knowledge partners for the T2RL Engage conference, and that is Accelya. And in the studio with me, I have Barbara Moreno, who is Director of Product Marketing, and I have Jonathan Newman, who is VP Global Business Development for Accelya. Hi, Barbara. Hi, Jonathan.
Hello, Ian. Thanks for having us here today.
Hi, Ian.
And today we're talking about modularity and interoperability. These are important concepts in the move that the industry is making towards modern retailing, or OOSD as we sometimes call it. And one of the values of modularity is that it should enable us to see value from the transition even before it's done, because we expect the transition to modern retailing to take at least a decade, and we need to be seeing value during that period as well as at the end of it. So let's get into it. Jonathan, how would you define interoperability and why does it matter?
Well, gosh, it's a great place to start, Ian. So interoperability to us can be defined to be defined as a way for airlines to be able to make fewer compromises. So today, airlines have to make compromises because of their technology, and those compromises then impact the way that they enact their commercial strategy. So with modularity, airlines can now start to think less about the impacts on broader systems because of that interoperability. Why is it important? Well, I mean, firstly, airlines have valued interoperability and modularity for a very long time. The ability for an airline to be able to go and choose a vendor based on the quality of that product is something that has been intuitively valued by pretty much every airline since forever. But it's only now becoming much more of a given that airlines are going to now demand this of their vendors.
Can I just add, Ian, before right actually in T2RL Engage last year, we had one of these round tables, and there was one of our customers, it was American Airlines. It was Debbie from American Airlines, and she just brought up an analogy, which I just love it. And then obviously in the table it was mainly men, and then when she brought up the analogy, she said, "Oh, I don't know if it will resonate with everyone in the table," and she brought like a makeup bag, okay? And then she was saying in the lines, okay, you have a makeup bag. The makeup bag, obviously, if you like Chanel, Dior, you can have all your makeup from Chanel. But she was challenged, like any women will have all the makeup from the same brand. And, as soon as she was saying that one, I was like thinking of my eyeliner from Victoria Beckham, which there's not any other eyeliner that can beat Victoria Beckham. And I was like, oh my goodness, that's so true. And then she was saying in the lines like, yes, you can buy Christian Dior, all the sets of the makeup, but you may want to have like the blush from Christian Dior, but you may want to have the eyeliner from Victoria Beckham. And I thought that was a very graphical way to explain why modularity matters and why to have the freedom to choose the provider you want for certain areas is really key. So,
yeah, you know what? I never thought we would reference Victoria Beckham and Christian Dior in one of these podcasts. So well done for that. And what I think we're saying here is it's the old conundrum of whether airlines are better served by going for a best of breed solution or buying a whole suite from a single vendor. In the days of PSS, the answer was almost always buy the whole thing from one vendor. But I think we're seeing in the move to OOSD or modern retailing, we're seeing much more emphasis on the value of best of breed solutions and the value that those can bring to an airline as it moves on this journey. Is that a fair assessment, Jonathan?
It certainly is, and interoperability, modularity was one of the founding tenets of modern airline retailing, as it's described, and I think it comes back to, and the value comes back to, especially in this transition, comes down to being able to select best of breed without having those compromises. And if you think about, coming back to, as you say, this is going to be a decade-long transformation, that being able to layer on top value that's going to come from different vendors is really important. And if you think about having to buy everything from one vendor, that means that potentially then an airline is handing over their horizon for innovation to somebody else. Whereas with interoperability, with modularity, then the airline can take much greater control of their horizon for innovation and be able to go and enact their own commercial strategies.
And we see it with our customers, Ian. I mean, in the lines of obviously you saw also last year in one of the events, we made the announcement of we serve with order accounting. So it's an airline that they've just chosen to do with us the settle bit, what is to revamp the financial with order accounting. We have it with many other of our airlines, like for example, also referring to the event season last year, we had American Airlines that were on the stage with us, sharing something that they are doing with us using Flex One Vision, which is the access. And actually, you did a paper on the solution, Ian, for us. So I see that with the customers, how they want to have that freedom to do things with us when they feel, we're bringing the value there, or when do they prefer to go with other vendors?
And Barbara, this isn't a new idea for Accelya, is it? I guess most of our listeners will be aware that Accelya has grown over the years and has acquired a number of other companies, one of which was Farelogix. And Farelogix contributed a great deal to the products that you now have on offer. But Farelogix, 15, 20 years ago, was actually providing, if you like, an upgrade to people's PSS to enable them to do some of the things they wanted to do in merchandising and retailing that the PSS at that time you couldn't support. So this is very much in the DNA of Accelya as an organization.
We couldn't send it better ourselves, Ian. Accelya, or Farelogix as it was, has never had a PSS to protect. In order for Accelya to be able to deliver the kind of value that you've just described, we have to interact with airlines' core systems and other third parties. It's absolutely critical, and to be able to offer that innovation, to be able to deliver on those values. And that, if you like, that strand of our DNA continues very much into the world of offer and order.
And I love how both, like Jonathan and you, Ian, just said DNA, because I think now when you look at kind of the marketing message, and maybe myself coming more from that angle, it seems like now everyone is open. And I remember when a couple of, I think it was last year, we were working with our CMO in terms of what really differentiates Accelya, And as I said, we read, or we see many providers say open and interoperable. But then for us, we brought the open by nature because of what you were saying, Ian, and then you, Jonathan, is because it's part of our DNA. At the end of the day, you brought up Farelogix. This was done with the whole concept of changing the industry, of giving the airlines freedom, giving the airlines control, giving the airlines the opportunity to do the strategy they wanted to bring to life. And at the end, that's reflected in everything we do in Accelya, is in our technology and architecture. Everything we do is with that mindset of openness. And for us, it doesn't mean we need to change what it was already there, that we need to change our mindset, we need to change our architecture, because it's there already. So everything we do is just in a way that there is no, that it's open to it for the airlines to integrate any kind of partner, vendor, whatever they want. So I love when you say it's part of our DNA, because it is.
Very good. All right. Let's move on to a slightly more difficult subject. I think we're all agreed that modularity and interoperability is a very good thing. It's a benefit of the transition that the industry is going through. But what's stopping it happening today? What are the barriers to achieving interoperability and modularity in your commercial stack?
So actually, if you let me just jump quickly, it's because just like last week, I was talking to someone that he told me like in the lines of like, like it was really starting on NDC, and he was saying like how in the lines like, that it was not working. I said, look, I think that the problem in the industry is like there's a lot of misconception and a lot of like really understanding what is really, like how NDC, what is NDC, and at the end NDC was this foundation of modern retailing, and now in a way it's like that's what we're really seeing now we have the foundation. It's like modern airline retailing now. Why, you say the barriers. So I think it's in a way it's not just the technology, it's the mindset, that needs to happen, the change of mindset. And I think I was also thinking the other day about like when myself having been in this industry a long time, and when I joined Amadeus many years ago, the first thing that we got when we were joining Amadeus, it was this like huge book that was giving you the tips and the entries to look and do things in the Amadeus system in cryptic. Okay, so, and if you look at the book was massive, so hard and to learn by heart. And then Amadeus came up with, okay, it was not cryptic, let's go to graphic. And travel agents, they were still using that book and were using cryptic. And you were thinking like, what the hell, sorry for my language. So it was like, why do they, it was like, why do they keep on using that cryptic, all, like entries that are so hard to remember? And I think it's the change management. It's like also for every time we need to go for a change, and we need to change the way we just like look at our architecture, we look at how we serve our customers, how, it requires also, it's not just the technology, but it's a change of mindset, and the change management needs to happen.
So it's at least in part a cultural issue, and old habits being ingrained. But I would put it to you that there are some actual technical issues as well, and one of them is the incomplete standards that exist within the industry. I won't say there are no standards, because there are, but I think they are still really incomplete. Would either of you like to comment on that?
No, I let that to Jonathan. He loves the topic.
Okay,
Jonathan.
Well, you're right, Ian, and those standards, the lack of complete standards, do pose a barrier. If you think, as an example, about telemetry, right, about how airlines will be able to manage the performance of different vendors in one ecosystem, there's no industry governed way for an airline to be able to do that today. And so that's a huge barrier, especially when you're talking not just now about innovative new systems that sit on top of a PSS, but you're talking about core systems that require 6 nines of uptime in order to serve the airline's customers. So we've worked very clearly with all of the other major vendors in the industry as part of our ongoing implementations and integrations with airlines. In depending on scale and on very different scales and sizes, whether that's American Airlines as 200 million PB a year airline, through to Airlink at 5 or 6 million PBs a year, both with very different ecosystems. And what we've been able to do with this experience in integration is we've been able to abstract a lot of these integrations. And we've been mapping these abstracted integrations to the future, to modern airline retailing. And this is now, from Accelia's perspective, this is becoming a standard. And it's one of the things that we're really hoping that the industry will get behind and be able to invest more time and effort in taking, whether it's these Accelya virtual interfaces or others, and start to build a comprehensive way for airlines to be able to take advantage of one of those initial tenets of modern airline retailing, which is modularity. And if I could maybe just add to what Barbara said earlier about this cultural change, Airlines are very siloed businesses, and if you think about the last couple of decades with airlines migrating from one PSS to another, it's a lot easier, in fact, for an airline to do that than it is for them to change the way that they do business. And it's and if we think now about how modern airline retailing is being positioned as primarily a value driver rather than a technology change, really we're seeing that smart airlines are starting to configure themselves and their organizations much more around those commercial objectives and the customer journey, which then translates into the technology they need to buy.
Yeah, and actually, I would just add something like, and also like for the people that are listening to us, if they plan to come to obviously T2RL Engage, we plan to present a case study that we're doing with one of our airlines, like with Lufthansa, but we already share some insights in terms of the benefits they are already seeing with this transformation to modern airline retailing. Jonathan was saying is obviously it's also just to see those benefits, and they are already seeing it in terms of attachment rate of ancillary services, and also actually 3 times bigger now, like with legacy technology, and also in terms of savings for the travelers. So I think it's good. It's really good when we see that how modern retailing is already bringing benefits to our customers and to the airlines overall.
Okay, so put yourselves in the mind of an airline executive who hasn't really started on the journey to modern retailing yet. What are the key things they should be thinking about as they contemplate that transformation?
That's a really great question, Ian. I'm glad we can spend some time talking about it. Firstly, I'd say that airline executives should be thinking about the outcomes. So what are the commercial objectives that they have into the future, rather than thinking about a system replacement? It's a lot easier to run an RFP and then consider responses in an objective way, rather than thinking about how technology enables differentiated outcomes. But it is more intuitive for the airline to do it that way. Think about it as objectives, strategy, and tactics. And ultimately, those tactics are what you are buying, what you're procuring in your technology. Secondly, I think about designing for a changing world. When we talk about strategies and objectives, they will change. And if you think about the airline industry of July 2026, it's very different even than the airline industry of January 2026. So if you make an assumption that the world is going to change and your needs are going to change, that's a very good place to start. Lastly, I think about asking vendors difficult questions, in particular around modularity, which can't just be how modular are you, but it's really what happens when this component changes to another vendor. Ask to be shown how the technology will deliver on those concepts to support your commercial strategy, and also to understand the commercial impact of how future technology change will make. Okay,
so it's a universal rule as far as I'm concerned, and you've articulated it pretty well, Jonathan. First of all, think of the business outcomes you're trying to achieve before you start thinking about swapping in this system or swapping out that system. That would be, to think of the technology first would be the wrong way around, and to think of the business first is the way to go. Okay, one last question about technology, and you did allude a moment ago to the fact that you've got a plan for a changing world. One of the big things that's changing is the prevalence of so-called artificial intelligence. I think the jury is still very much out on whether this is truly a world-changing technology or whether it's a bubble. But at Accelya, I am sure you are incorporating some AI technologies into your products, and you plan to go on doing that.
That's a really good way to frame it, Ian. AI now is embedded in every major enterprise software company, and Accelya is no different. If I can maybe talk about it just from the lens of agentic. So one of the challenges that airlines are going through when they think about this transition to modern airline retailing is not just the technology and the cultural change that goes beyond it, but it's what happens to the work. So there's a lot of processes, there's a lot of utilizations of technology, utilization of the technology, which will change. Our perspective is that airlines should be thinking about how this work gets done at the same time as they're thinking about this technology change. We've been working very closely with the Vista Agentic Factory to work on a number of different POCs in different areas of the airline business today, which will help airlines now to be able to rethink some of these processes. Why is it important that this is done hand in hand with modern airline retailing? Well, there's a lot that could be achieved with agentic on top of a PSS. However, the unified data structure of offers and orders provide a much better foundation for airlines to be able to rethink some of these processes and think now about how artificial intelligence can do that work on their behalf.
Yeah, and that's very much in line with what our friend Claude Muller from IATA published in a long blog piece a couple of months ago, and certainly there will be many in the industry who very much agree with you on that. This is an interesting conversation. We could go on for a lot longer, but we're not going to, because this is a conference preview, if you like. The discussion will continue at T2RL Engage in September. It's only 2 months away now. My usual reminder that if you're an airline manager, executive person, and you are interested to attend T2RL Engage, there is no charge for airline attendees at the conference, and we very much hope to see you in London in September. And of course, we will see Jonathan and we will see Barbara at T2RL Engage in the shadow of St. Paul's Cathedral in London. So for right now, thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Barbara, for this conversation. And as always, thank you to you for listening. And I look forward to talking to you in the next edition of T2RL Talks.
Thanks, Ian. Thanks for having us today.
Thank you. Thank you, T2RL. Thank you for having us, and thank you for listening.